15 Vikings characters we wish were still around in Season 6. If you've seen Vikings, you'll know that it's a show that has been more than willing to kill off popular and extremely important characters. As of the time of this writing, Vikings is in the middle of airing its 6th season, which we already know will be its last. As a result, fans of the show have found themselves reflecting on Vikings' television run, both in terms of the good and bad. Definitely, a show that has been more than willing to kill off popular and extremely important characters. At times, the willingness to dispatch anyone has made Vikings a lot more riveting. Unfortunately, the opposite also is true, as certain characters that were taken out made the show a lot more enjoyable to watch. With that in mind, it is time to get to this list of 15 Vikings characters we wish were still around in Season 6. 15 Rollo. Unlike the majority of the characters that appear on this list, as of this writing, Rollo is still alive, and it seems possible that he could make a return before everything is said and done. However, we've included him here as it seems more likely that he won't show up again, and we would like to see him go out like a Viking, and or give his relationship with Bjorn some finality. 14 Horik. When Horik decided to accompany Ragnar during his raid of England, it seemed far from certain that the two men would be able to coexist. In fact, it wasn't surprising that Horik soon lost his life at the hand of Ragnar and some of his people. That said, Horik was believable enough as an alpha male that he could have stuck around until now and been a thorn in the side of everyone else who wants to lead. 13 Astrid. When Astrid was first introduced as a Vikings character, we weren't big fans of her because she lacked any interest in the intrigue that makes the show so entertaining. Then, she was taken against her will and forced to marry King Harald, which made Astrid a lot more interesting. Clearly, a storyline that could have resulted in Astrid adapting to her surroundings and potentially becoming more cutthroat than anyone expected. Her character was then quickly killed off. 12 Leif. On the one hand, if Leif was going to die when he did, we couldn't have asked for a better end for his character, as his decision to sacrifice himself was pretty amazing. On the other hand, he had so much potential to be a total badass character, and it feels like he never got to do anything of note aside from dying, which is a crying shame. 11 Ecbert. Based on the name of this show alone, it seems abundantly clear that viewers tuned in because they wanted to see the Vikings' way of life. For that reason, the introduction of Ecbert, a character that in some ways was the opposite of a Viking, was a stroke of genius. On top of that, Ecbert's extreme intelligence, sophistication, craftiness, and deviousness made him a joy to watch. 10 Gilla. Not even given the dignity of being killed off, Princess Gilla instead was just written out of the show like the show's producers thought Vikings fans didn't want her around any longer. Deserving of so much more than a fate like that, Gilla's strong will and interesting past made her a real asset for the show, and we sorely miss her to this day. 9 Borg. Cunning enough to turn Rollo against his own brother, Borg was never supposed to be a popular character, but he was extremely effective in his role. Also, a fantastic warrior who even managed to suffer the blooded eagle with honor, Borg was the complete package in terms of a Vikings character. 8 Tanarus. Of all the characters on this list, it could be argued that Tanarus is the one that least lived up to their potential. After all, it should have been amazing to see her grapple internally as she grew up, and her newfound affection for the Vikings caused her dueling loyalties to come to a head. 7 Helga. When it comes to several of the characters that appear on this list, even though we dislike their removal from the show, we have to admit their passing served a purpose. On the other hand, Helga's death didn't even shock us the way the show's writers seemed to think it would, and we still miss the dynamic she had with Floki. 6 Ethelwulf. Arguably among the most tragic Vikings characters, and that is saying something, Ethelwulf had a tough life. Still able to overcome all of that emotional trauma, he was a great enough character that he almost made viewers root for the Saxons for a brief moment. If only the show kept a character like him around, we can only imagine how great he could have become. 5. Gyda. The daughter of Ragnar and Lagertha. There are 3 reasons why we wish Gyda hadn't passed away from the plague. First of all, as the child of Ragnar, there is every reason to think she would have grown up to be awesome. Secondly, she barely got any screen time, but viewers still cared about her. Finally, Ragnar's reaction to her death was so emotional that it made us wish we got to see more of their bond. 4. Thorstein. Definitely, a character who never lived up to his potential. Whenever Thorstein showed up on the screen, we were always happy to see him. Unfortunately, the show never properly took advantage of that element of his character, and aside from his incredible death, Thorstein didn't get his just due. 3. Siggy. At first blush, Siggy seemed like the perfect wife for any king, as she not only seemed devoted to her husband, but people were drawn to her and quick to trust her. Ultimately revealed to be a lot craftier than everyone thought, her character should have been involved in a slew of fascinating storylines instead of dying. 2. Ragnar. On the one hand, there is no doubt that Ragnar's passing served a pivotal storyline purpose, which sadly isn't the case for some Vikings characters that have been taken out. On the other hand, every leader the show has introduced since has been compared to Ragnar in the minds of fans, and he blows far too many of them out of the water. 1. Athelstan. If you ask us, Athelstan is one of the most fascinating characters in Vikings history. After all, he served as the perfect proxy for viewers as he found himself in deep conversations with both Ragnar and Ecbert, which allowed him to understand both sides of their conflict. In fact, it still baffles us to this day that Vikings writers removed such a relatable character and never replaced him with anyone who served a similar role.